I've been yelled at that I'm the typical BMW driver, and I'm
enrobed in the lap of luxury when you're in a Rolls-Royce. Whereas in the BMW, I mean, for me, it's like put on the helmet, gloves, race shoes. We're going to IKEA.
they're all excited when they hear that I drive the 1M. And then right next to me, as I was talking about my 1M, there was a $2.5 million BMW 507 Roadster.
Wow.
The actual styling of future BMW cars, maybe if you look at that car, you're kind of imagining maybe a future 3 Series electric i3 hybrid. Why are you replacing the F80 with the G80?
Okay, you and everybody else wants to know.
It's a valid question. Hey guys, welcome back to the BMW Blog podcast. This is season 2, episode 2. It's been a while since we've been live, but it's time to come back and give you some more behind the scenes looks, the BMW brand, and of course some of the things that we've done in the last few weeks, few months. So, and as always, I have a guest with me, James Backage, joining me, and we're going to talk about a few things today, including one of his special project cars that he's going to tell us more in this episode. We're going to tell you where we're heading next and what we're testing, and see what else we can share with you. So, James, welcome.
Thank you, Horatiu. Good to be here.
So maybe let's kick it off with the big one, right? Let's start with you, maybe. So, you have a BMW M3 CS F80, and now you're working on something special. Maybe some of our listeners, viewers have seen your video on our YouTube channel. If you haven't, please go there. You will probably notice it right away. It's something very, very different. But how about you tell us more about that, and then I can ask you some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a little project that I'm working on. It's kind of a big deal. Like you said, I do have a 2018 F80 M3 CS, and the big news is that recently I was invited over to BMW Seattle to be able to place an order for the G80 M3 CS. And that's sort of the big new chapter that we're kicking off in the BMW blog family.
All right. So let me ask you this before you go any further.
Yeah.
Why are you replacing the F80 with the G80?
Okay, you and everybody else wants to know.
It's a valid question.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So the truth is, I mean, day one when the G80 and the G82 actually launched, I did publish a editorial on BMW blog, essentially at the time being in the minority, saying that I actually do like the design of the front end of the G8X series. And yeah, that's partially part of the reason why I am looking at the G80 CS and looking at saying farewell to the F80 CS, because I really like the new design. It's mean. It's so angry. It's got a lot of things going on for it that I personally like, which again, a lot of people seem to not be able to differentiate between personal tastes and others. I like it. That's the short end of it. I think it's mean, and I like it. I appreciate the.
So you're a fan of the kidney grill, then?
I am. Yeah, I'm gonna go out there and say that I am a fan of the kidney grill. I know a lot of people just jumped back at the sound of that, but yeah, I am, and I know that there's others that like it as well. So I know I'm not alone.
Tell me this.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're trying to do with the coverage that we put out. So maybe walk us through some of the things that we might see as far as YouTube videos and articles and all that. Maybe tease a few things and how this project will go also when it comes to media content.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited because like you mentioned, we have some things lined up, some things cooking in the works. The first video, which is essentially the call, has already gone out. It's public, it's live, and people can watch it. It's essentially me getting the call from BMW Seattle to go in and build my dream G80 CS. Now, what people can expect coming in the future is essentially the journey that is from ordering your dream car to essentially delivery and doing a walk around overview, and everything that is included in between that, from the weight, which is always a really tough thing. It is absolutely a first world problem, but anyone that's ordered a car knows that the weight is pretty brutal. You're constantly scouring the web for information. You're constantly pestering your dealership and your rep to find out if the order has been in, if there's a confirmation, if the status has changed on the build itself through BMW, and you're constantly checking the status page, see if it's gone into production. So I've experienced that with the base F80, the white one. That was my first M car that we ordered, and it was rough, but it was a lot of fun as well. So people can expect that tied to the G80 CS. And then there's a little bit of prep that I need to do in anticipation of picking up the G80 CS. It is a more powerful car than the F80. Its characteristics and handling abilities differ. So I think I need to go and train sharpen my skills, if you will, on a dedicated M track at some undisclosed event that will be revealed soon.
All right. So, do you want to share some of the options that, in case people haven't watched the video, some of the options that you've picked for the car?
Yeah.
Have you revealed the color? I don't recall, honestly. Have you revealed the color in the video?
I do actually reveal the color in the video.
Too bad. You should have kept that as a secret. That would have been pretty cool.
Well, I mean,
since you revealed that, let's just start with that maybe, and then tell me why you picked that color.
Absolutely, sure. So, let's start with the 4 color options that anybody can choose as far as ordering a G80 CS. So, the first color option is Brooklyn Gray, and that's a standard color. Then you have, I believe it's Sapphire Black. Again, another standard color. And then you have 2 BMW individual color options to choose from. Signal Green, which is this, I'm going to call it confused green. Personally, that's my opinion. It's not a very strong green. It's not a pastel. It is this somewhere in between green, which if you watch the call video, the inaugural video of this adventure series that I'm putting out, you'll know that Adam from BMW Seattle really, really pushed hard to order it in that color because he's a fan of it. While I, on the other hand, am a big fan of the 4th color, which is also BMW individual optional color, and that is Frozen Solid White, which is BMW's matte paint. And I'm excited for it, and that's the color that I chose because it's also the inaugural color for BMW to ever use this on any production vehicle. You couple that with the 1 year of manufacture for the G80 CS with the inaugural color. I think it's a winning combo. I'm excited for it, and I think it'll contrast really nicely with the carbon fiber aerodynamic components on the car.
Gotcha. All right. Aren't you afraid of the frozen colors?
No. Well, first of all, Horatiu, I'm not afraid of anything.
Okay, so you live in Seattle, right? So around that area, basically, and you get a lot of snow and rain and all of that, and so not concerned at all about salt on the car and frozen paints and all of that.
And first of all, I take really good care of my cars. I treat them well. I protect them. They're always covered. So the short answer is no. I'm not really worried about it. But I might do. My F80 CS has a ceramic coat on it, like head to toe, literally everything from the roof all the way down to the windows, the wheels, the brake calipers, and of course all the body panels. So that is definitely something that's in the cards that I'm thinking about doing on the frozen paint, and then potentially PPF. In which case, I would PPF the car and then ceramic coat that, so it would get essentially 2 layers of protection. But white hides a lot of things. Like white cars, I think they kind of they don't get their time in the light. They kind of get a bad rap. Either they're boring colors or what have you. Like white really hides dirt surprisingly well. Scratches as well. Like you can't really see any blemishes on a white car.
Gotcha.
Now you add the element of frozen paint, and it's a little bit more complicated, but still good.
Okay. So from an investment perspective, why aren't you swinging on towards keeping the F80 M3 CS? Because I feel like that car, it's only going to appreciate in value over time. I mean, it's almost impossible not to. Extremely limited, not too many in the US. And honestly, that car has a really nice design, despite the fact that when it came out, I remember the F80 and F82, they were called quite boring by the M community. That's, it's a boring M car, but now everybody loves them. So maybe take a loan and keep both.
Well, listen, I wish I could do that. And if anybody wants to sponsor me and give me lots and lots of money so that I can keep both, absolutely. Why not?
I mean, you could always take a loan and see this as an investment, honestly. I mean, if you treat it as an investment, doesn't matter. You take a loan out. Hopefully the interest rate is not too high on it. And over time, I don't see how this car is not going to appreciate in value. I mean, it's almost impossible not to.
Yeah, I think it'll, like any limited edition or limited production run of any vehicle, it sits at the top of the value food chain within its platform. I agree. I don't think we're going to see, appreciation or retention like we have seen on the 1M. Okay. I would love to keep both, but just logistically and financially, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for me personally, and that's just the truth. I'd love to keep both.
Yeah, so I mean, the 1M, if you're looking at that, it's not a very good use case because, or example, because the price point on that or the MSRP was quite low when it started, right? So there's a lot more room to actually appreciate, and people feel comfortable paying $89,000, $90,000 for it. Versus this one starts very high. What was the price of your build?
MSRP factory without any options on the F80, you mean, or the G80?
On the actually, let's do the F80 and then we'll do the G80 because we haven't talked about the price.
Yeah, so the F80 CS retailed for $98,000-$99,000. Okay. And there were only a handful of options that you can add to it, which were the M Performance carbon ceramic brakes and the M Performance titanium exhaust.
Okay.
The brakes retailed for $8,500, and the M Performance exhaust, I believe, was $5,000 or $5,000-$6,000, something like that, which brought the total MSRP of the F80 CS to $117,000.
Okay.
So yeah, there's quite a delta between the 1M and the F80 CS when you look at it that way.
And the G80?
The G80 starts at $118,600, something like that. 119, yeah. It's quite a jump. It's quite. I mean,
basically starting at the price of what you pay for the F80 M3 CS with all the options.
Exactly. That is true. With the options that I've added, the frozen individual paint is $4,500 on top of that. You don't have a choice as far as exhausts go. It comes with a titanium silencer from the factory, which is very nice. You can add the carbon ceramic brakes, which again, the price difference stays the same between the F80 and the G80 generation, so $8,500. And that's about it. You have choices in tires between the Cup 2s and unspecified. So you either go Cup 2s or unspecified sort of performance all season.
I hope you got the unspecified, right?
I got the Cup 2s.
I got the Cup 2s. Man, it's a tricky one. I mean, honestly, they're great track tires, but I don't know. I will be afraid driving them on the road if it's not the proper temperature and all of that. It's
yeah, I am a little bit leery of that because, Seattle, Washington weather. But you know what? I mean, G80
PS4S. I mean, you can do the PS4S honestly as a
the benefit
kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But there's an added safety net in the fact that
what's
it's
the
not
benefit
just
really of Cup? What's the benefit of Cup 2s on normal driving? Because I don't ever get it, honestly.
No, I mean for commuting standard driving, you don't see too much really. It's really when you push and they get up to temperature where you start seeing the benefits.
Yeah, but we're gonna push them, right? I mean, we're talking about street driving, slow speeds. There is no pushing. So
absolutely, yeah, I never push. I never drive fast ever. That's not me.
I mean, if you track the car and you want to keep them honest, you don't want to swap them on and off, and you track the car quite often, I can see why. I mean, they're great tires on the track. Honestly, they're fantastic. I mean, but honestly, I would be super afraid of daily driving. I mean, even the PS4 has their tricky one. It's a little bit.
I guess stay tuned.
Outside.
Stay tuned, and you'll find out. Yeah.
Hopefully, you don't end up one of those YouTube videos. The guy that decided to floor the car on on a straight line and crashed into a pole. I just saw a video on TikTok the other day with the G80. I was like, wow.
The green one.
Yeah, the green one.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. It's just it's soul crushing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to go watching on TikTok, I mean, think the guy made a mistake. Also, he kind of floored the car even more when he started to lose control of it instead of just lifting up the gas pedal and try to counter steer. But yeah, I guess live and learn. That's where you need to go
no, pass, hard pass. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen. Okay. Stay tuned, I guess.
All right, so let me ask you this final topic on the M3 CS. Why the M3 CS and not the M4 CSL? Aside from the price difference, I mean, clearly there's a price difference.
Clearly, yeah. So there's multiple factors as to why not the M4 CSL. Personally, I prefer a 4-door over a 2-door. Mm-hmm. The added allure of having such a small production run on the CSL is quite nice. Mm-hmm. At the same time, and I don't think it's a secret, you cannot find an M4 CSL at MSRP. The adjusted market price is just
it's quite high.
It's quite high, and I am, again, not a huge fan of 2-doors. I like 2-door cars. I just prefer 4-door cars. So the M3 CS was sort of like the logical choice for me. There's obviously the M4 CS versus the M3 CS. There's always like a couple, there's like a handful of things that differ between them that kind of differentiate them. Sure. Aside from the door count, like the OLED lights on the F82 versus the laser lights, right? It's almost like Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue back in the day for anyone that's listening and is like a gamer, right? There's certain things that you get with one and not with the other. But yeah, the short end of it is I didn't want to pay market adjusted prices, and I prefer 4-doors over 2. That's the short end of it. Yeah, I think there's just something really, really cool about having a car that is sort of a Swiss Army knife and can do track and can do an IKEA run if need be, and everything sort of in between.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. Well, I'm excited to see how the project unravels. Basically, let's see what we have in store. Yeah, I mean, if you guys haven't watched the video, it's on our YouTube channel. You're going to see the big thumbnail with the G80 M3 CS in signal green. So that's another color that James picked, but it's a good color to attract people to click on it. So
that's true. Also, I couldn't find a really good BMW archive image of a frozen white.
No, I think that's a good one to lure people in, even though it's not the same color. But I guess you guys can go watch it. It's quite long, but very informative. It kind of takes you behind the scenes on what it means to order the car, and then of course we're gonna keep on going and giving you some content on that as we get close to delivery. And then before the delivery, we have, like James said, a very special surprise, on how you prepare to drive the M3 CS. So stay tuned for that. We're working with BMW USA on a very cool little project. So we'll have some more on that stuff too. So definitely some great footage coming from James. He's really talented when it comes to video. He's got his own channel, so make sure that you go look for it. James Package on YouTube.
Okay.
He's a car fan, but also a watch aficionado, right? So
God, yeah,
you can get to learn both in one place. So
no, actually, no,
see,
I
that
separated.
was a nice plug. You see, and that was you separated them. Okay,
I separated, but thank you for the plug. That's very kind and sweet of you. I appreciate it. But I did separate them. Yeah. There's car and travel, and then there's like watches as a separate thing. But another thing that really cool, if people haven't watched the call video that we published, there's some incredible behind the scenes stuff that we do that, again, Adam from BMW Seattle was kind enough to like show us a little bit behind the curtain of
shout out to them. Yeah.
Shout out to them. Absolutely. Like they treated us so well. Not just what it is to order a car and what the process is, but like crazy cool things that nobody really gets to see from like behind the scenes, behind the curtain from a dealership's perspective. I had a blast. Definitely recommend watching that and sort of informing yourself and seeing how the sauce is made, so to say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, so let's jump into the next segment then.
Let's do it.
All right, so next topic for me, I'm gonna talk about me a little bit now.
Yeah,
it's
let's
my
do
turn. Let's make it all about me now.
Let's do it.
So, I mean, it's been a few weeks since I've been live. I think the last podcast was Chuck with Nico, and they talked about some of the cars that Nico test drove. I think he drove the 7 Series, the M4 CSL. Right before that, I had a chance to drive the i7 also, and also the 760i. So let me tell a little bit about that. Maybe the i7, because that's the car that excited me the most. The 760i 7 Series V8, it's everything you expected from that car. So really, of course, it's an improvement over the previous generation, but it's still a V8, still kind of the same thing. But the i7 was the one that really surprised me. Had a chance to drive it also in Palm Springs, and I had a chance to also push it quite hard, actually, some of those roads. A little bit too hard, maybe sometimes. But it's let's move past the design, right? I've said it before. I'm not a fan of necessarily the bikini grill on the 7 Series. It does look all right on actually black, colors, maybe dark colors, and I don't mind it as much. But of course, it's an acquired taste, or maybe it's one of those things that you either love it or hate it. So I don't dwell too much on that. The interior, it's absolutely top notch. I think there is nothing the BMW could have done better inside the car. The curved display fits perfectly within that car. It's a big cockpit, so of course it makes a lot more sense than maybe in smaller cars like the i4. So it doesn't bother me at all. Naturally, I'm still complaining about the physical buttons and switches kind of going away and kind of making things a little bit harder for the driver. But once again, just a little pet peeve that I have with that, and I guess some people have it as well. So interior, top quality. I had a cashmere seating trim or upholstery, however you want to call it, which is quite unique because I haven't seen it in a BMW before. Clearly, they're telling me that it's quite durable, so we'll see if it's gonna pass the test of time, basically.
How it's going to hold up. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, it looked premium, honestly, for a cashmere. I never imagined that I would replace leather in a $170,000 car with cashmere, but I can see why somebody would do it. It's so nice, honestly, and very, very unique. So that was cool. And of course, got all the amenities in there, expecting a luxury car. Gimmicks, plenty of gimmicks in that car. I mean, you have all these automatic open and close doors and everything else. And honestly, it's kind of expected in the class of that in that class. And
Yeah.
of course, some people might use those, some people might not, but they're just there, so you don't really have to use them if you don't want to. But it's nice to have. And of course, the theater screen. I guess that's impressive. I had a chance to ride in the back seat, and phenomenal. Honestly, I can see myself having a driver and just kind of going for a long ride and just watching, movies or whatever. Even doing, you can actually do video streaming there, and you can do video conferencing also. You can even do probably a podcast. Honestly, as long as you don't lose the signal, you can actually have a podcast with someone.
I think we should do that.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Actually, that'll be a cool idea, honestly, because I think if you're in an area where you have really good 5G coverage, I don't see why it wouldn't work, and it'd be quite cool actually to do that. So might be an interesting one to look at. But
be a world's first, right? Like maybe,
yeah, probably.
possibly.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully something is not going to steal our idea now. So yeah, let's do it fast.
Let's do it.
Actually, Nate is driving one this week. I don't know if he has the theater screen or not, but I got to ask him.
He does.
But
He said he's got it's the 760, so it has to, right?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. It's an option, so I don't know if they have it or not, but I'll ask him actually. But back to the i7 driving, yeah. So honestly, fantastic car, super fast to drive, had the same power, I think, as the 760i normal one. Of course, the acceleration, it's instant, getting all that instant torque, especially when you try to floor the car in some of those curvy roads. It's really competent, actually. You can do a lot of things you don't expect from a car of that size. It's got all these nice features when it comes to brake regeneration, low mode, medium, high, adaptive. And by going into the high adaptive mode, basically, I started to get car sick at some point because the braking is so aggressive.
Oh, wow.
You're going so fast, and then you're braking fast. So I was trying to regenerate the most energy in a car, and kind of see if I can achieve the best range. But that shows right there how fast the car is and how fast it can actually brake and all of that. But nonetheless, honestly, I feel like it's a really good product. The range is decent. I don't see people having that car that drive a lot, basically. So for its intended purposes, I think the range is not bad at all. And once again, the design, either love it or hate it. But honestly, I feel like they've done a good job with this one. And I can only imagine what they're going to do on the next generation 7 Series when they have a brand new platform and a lot more room to play with the battery sizes and the packaging of the entire drivetrain and all of that. Yeah.
I think it's a very compelling offering from BMW. I've spoken with a handful of people, and the general sort of sentiment is that in some aspects, the new 7 Series has essentially utterly eclipsed the S Class.
So that's a tough one, right? So I just talked to someone about that as well. I feel like at the S class, it's always been what the M3 has been in its segment. So AMG's been trying to, in my opinion, try to catch up with the M3 for a long time, and maybe they get close. But I feel like the M3 is kind of like the king of that segment.
100%.
Even though you might hear reviews, here and there, they might praise the AMG or maybe the Audi RS stuff, more. But I would say the M3 is king in that class, and I feel like the same way S class, it's been the king in that segment for a long time. And BMW is constantly trying to, kind of not catch up and maybe trying to outdo them. But honestly, the S class, it's kind of like when people think about luxury limousine, probably that comes to mind first. Nonetheless, I don't think it's a winner takes all game. You just want to have a really good volume in that segment.
It rarely is, right? Like it rarely is.
Exactly. So you just want to have a good product to give people that maybe they're in love with the BMW brand and they want to stay with the BMW brand. You want to give them an option. And when it comes to that, people that cross shop, of course, they're always going to look for the latest and shiniest tool and all of that. And people that probably S-Class fans for a very long time, they might not go to buy a 7 Series the same way. They're not going to go from an M3 to an AMG 4-cylinder, C63 basically, right? So once again, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. They're competing in multiple segments. Sometimes one comes ahead of the other one. Sometimes the other way around. So it's nothing wrong, with one car being better than the other one. But
no, not at all. I mean, it's healthy competition. I think it's what keeps the manufacturers sort of honest and constantly striving to do better and to sure. raise the bar. But no, I just thought it was very interesting that some people were like, yeah, the new 7 has actually been exceeding in some areas where previously the S-Class has always dominated in those specific sort of areas, like rear space and amenities and creature comforts and quote unquote gimmicks. Like the new 7 it has arrived. It's making a statement. It's in some aspects leading the way.
Yeah, and I'm going to share one more thing actually, because it shows how different we are, how different we perceive styling and maybe design. So, for example, I actually like the EQS shape, right? So people complain about, especially Mercedes fans, they complain about the shape of the EQS, especially the roofline, and honestly, I find it like to be real sleek and very futuristic, maybe because I like that stuff usually. It doesn't bother me, but they complain about that quite a bit. Well, we're on our side, we're complaining about the Kine grill on the 7 Series, and then I heard people from Mercedes saying, "Oh no, that's actually not bad. It's actually kind of fits the car's profile. It's got a nice integration. It kind of reminds me of like a mini Rolls-Royce, which is not a bad thing, and so on and so forth." So it's just funny how different we are. But I guess at the end of the day, if you're a 7 Series fan and when you had a car for a long time, you are inclined probably to buy it once again, especially if now you have so many drivetrain options. I don't see why you shouldn't look at the car. But that was kind of the i7. I think you can always watch our videos. I've done one. I think Nico has done one as well. And we'll have a 760i coming out from Nate. He's going to test drive it quite a bit also, kind of focusing mostly on features and all of that. So we'll cover that quite a bit.
It's exciting. I'm like you said regenerative braking, and I'm very curious to experience at some point, hopefully, the aggressive regenerative braking setting plus mechanical braking from your actual brakes, plus pairing that with like engine braking, right? Like by downshifting, like that's three levels essentially of braking, and how that sort of like emerges as far as like vehicle characteristics and dynamics and how it exerts itself on you as a driver. Because you said you actually started feeling a little bit sick.
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling sick because I was pushing the car quite hard. And once you go into that regen mode, which I'm used to, the one brake pedal feel basically from the i3 has only one option, the i3. So I kind of wanted to experiment the same thing in the i7 because the car's mass is so high and the speeds I was traveling with are so high. Of course, you're going to get car sick if you're constantly, braking hard and doing all of that. But honestly, I've said it in all my reviews. If you're buying an i4, iX, i7, whatever iX1, just go and pick the adaptive, brake regen. It does everything for you. You don't have to worry about it. It's perfect. It's a really smart algorithm on hardware, and it takes a lot of data into consideration and knows exactly how much to brake and when and all of that. So there is nothing better than that. If you do want to play around with the other settings, of course, they're there, but adaptive just works. Put it in. Don't worry about it. You're good to go. Of course, I had to test it all, and clearly, yeah. But it just gets you sick because you're going fast with that car. I mean, it's a big car. You're going on Palm Springs, got these really curvy roads, constantly trying to push the car, brake hard, and all of that. But it shows right there how much fun that car is, really. And of course, nobody's going to drive the car the way that I did or some other journalist did either. I mean, that's a limousine. You want to go soft and calm and not worry about that. But of course, we have to be those type of guys that
We have to do our job.
Yeah, exactly. So that was that. Yeah. So now we're talking about the future a little bit. I mean, I guess from there I went to or some other trips in between, but I guess one of them was definitely I went to Munich before CS and I had a chance to see and film the BMW Vision Dee, so that very futuristic concept car, artificial intelligence, and all of that. So I had a chance to play with it in Munich and also then at CS. Lots of topics on that, honestly, and lots of comments and views. Actually, also I've done a quick cut from my interview with Domagoj Dukic, the head of design from BMW, and I think that particular clip is like 30 seconds long, asking the car what's its name, her name, his name, whatever you want to put it, or however you want to put it. And I think that video's got like, I don't know, 20 million views across multiple platforms. And yeah, of course, mostly because of the name, kind of unique name.
V.
So people were people were playing some jokes with that. But nonetheless, when it comes to the car, I think one thing worth mentioning that it's a vision car. So BMW has this thing that where they have like a vision project, then they have the actual concept car, and then they have their production series. In some cases, I believe the i8, maybe they had a vision, they had a concept, they had another concept, and then they had finally the production series. And of course, it gets closer and closer in terms of design to the production at some point. So this car, it's really a vision, right? It's meant to show really maybe not the actual styling of future BMW cars, maybe if you look at that car, you're kind of imagining maybe a future 3 Series electric i3, however they want to call it, and maybe the dimensions will be similar, but I don't expect the actual shape to be identical. There will be some things from that car for sure. I expect the kidney grills to kind of go more horizontal than actually vertical. So I expect that to see, and I expect some very sleek, taillights and headlights, and especially from the side, I expect the new design, the Neue Klasse design, to be very clean, very minimalistic, kind of in line with electric cars. So you're not going to have all these creases and shapes that you usually see on current products. So that's that, but I don't think it's the identical future, 3 Series, of course, because it's a vision. We're going to see the concept car later this year. I'm going to have a chance to see that actually quite soon. And then basically that's going to preview in a way what we're going to see in 2025 with the new generation. But I think one thing that we will see from this car, and I think that's why BMW went to emphasize that quite a bit of CS, was really the new head-up display. So they have this new head-up display that kind of takes over the entire windshield at the bottom of the windshield and just kind of spans across. And I'm going to try to put some B-roll and some footage on this one so you can actually see it. And essentially, that's kind of their vision for a future head-up display, probably powered by iDrive 10 by that time, because they have an iDrive 9 coming out soon. So I guess the iDrive 10 will make sense to be, it's kind of like a cool number also, so might as well save that for the new class and have iDrive 10, which I'm pretty sure that's going to be the name. It just makes sense. And
we're going to see iDrive X.
Yeah, or iDrive X. Actually, that's actually a good one. I like iPhone X. Yeah, that'll be a cool one. So yeah, so I guess the head-up display is something that felt like it was not that far from a production series. I mean, of course, they had this augmented reality and AI embedded in it and all of that, and quite cool. Actually, a mixed reality kind of thing, which is something that I've also tested before, and I can talk about that after this because it kind of ties into that. But a mixed reality really means you're kind of into an AR world, but at the same time, you're kind of seeing physical things as well, objects. So if like in that demo mode, I was in a full AR mode and I was driving through the strip in Las Vegas, and then there were some bikers or bicycles, passing by me, and then immediately kind of switched to a mixed reality mode where I could see them and avoid them if I needed to, and all of that. So interesting mix. I don't think it's going to be in a production series anytime soon, but I guess the idea how everything was displayed, and also the fact that the information about the car, the mileage, the speed, all that was displayed at the bottom of the windshield in a very, I felt like it was a non-invasive way. I mean, on video it might look invasive, but actually once you're behind the wheel, it doesn't look like it's just taking over the entire field of vision. And honestly, I felt it was very slick. I also played around with it, and it seemed like the information was only available. It was kind of contextual. So whatever you needed to see at that point, it will be shown in there, so, which was quite cool because it didn't feel like it's overloading. So essentially it was quite clean, one information at a time, not overloading. So that way you're not distracted. But I am curious how that's going to be refined for production series.
I mean, information overload is a very real thing. So I think the user interface, the UX UI is key. To see it come out and being showcased at this stage is really exciting. And I think obviously BMW would be smart, and I'm sure they do this already. Gather feedback, gather input from external sources, not just like internal user researchers, but it's we're living in the future in many
Yeah,
ways,
for
right?
sure. Yeah, for
So
sure.
that sounds
I mean, the
cool.
only downside of all of this, honestly, is, and I can see the reading on the wall, and actually not even that. I don't have to see it because I was kind of told in interviews with the chief designer, Adrian Van Hoyt, and all these guys. I guess what it means really that we're going to be losing even more physical buttons and switches. It kind of becomes, maybe
Yeah,
it's not a switchless world, but definitely a lot less switches and buttons than we see before, than we see today. And honestly, that's kind of the only downside because I give them my honest feedback. You know, I give it to Adrian also, and I give it to some other guys that were present there. They were in charge of digital aspects at BMW, and I told them that nothing will ever replace the physical buttons and switches when it comes to simple functions like
yeah.
controlling the AC, controlling the radio, and all of that. They just work. And I give the example of I used to study when I was in school. Actually, a fun fact: I'm a computer science major, so I studied one semester. I focused quite a bit on UI and UX back in the day, and I've learned quite a few things from there that basically some things just work. Like, for example, a doorknob. There is a reason why a doorknob is still a doorknob today, right? I don't know when it was invented, but definitely a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at a doorknob or door handle, you know how they just say door handle. It just works, right? Everybody knows how to use it. Everybody knows what it does. It doesn't need anything new, anything electronic, and everything else. And I think some of these things should just stay that way, honestly, because it's so much easier to adjust the AC by simply turning onto a knob than having to use voice controls, which sometimes work. You know, it's a funny one because they keep pushing the voice controls, and I get it, they work. There are a couple of things there. Sometimes it doesn't really work well, and I've tested it with somebody that doesn't have an accent, maybe like I do, so maybe a native-born American, basically no accent, everything else. Like Nico tested it, and in some cases it didn't work properly. Of course, could be a combination of different things. Maybe it was a pre-production car, so on and so forth, but it did not work extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is when it works, you don't really know all the commands. You need to kind of figure out what can it do for you. So there are things that you think they're obvious, and you're telling the car to do, and it doesn't do it because they're just either regulations. Like, for example, I think there was one example in the iX, like you could open the windows by voice command, but you cannot close all of them or something like that. Very, very unique. I'm sure it's a regulation type of thing.
Hmm.
Same thing, you cannot open the trunk basically with the voice command, things that you would assume that would work clearly. You don't want to do that while driving. So that might be the reason there. But there's some things that you have to go to the manual actually in the car to kind of figure out what the car can actually do for you via voice command. So I'm sure there'll be a time in the future, like Vision Dee showed, where an artificial intelligence type of computer will be able to recognize a lot more things from you and process them the same way like Siri does, and maybe Alexa and all of that. But unfortunately, to go back to what I said is, we are losing those physical buttons and switches, which I believe some of them should have stayed in there for mainstream functions, as I call them.
Mm-hmm.
I give one other example that I gave one of the digital vice presidents. Basically, I said, if you have a very long playlist, so let's say you connect your Apple CarPlay and you have a very long playlist on your phone. By the time you're going with the finger and trying to scroll down and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, it's very distracting. I mean, if you're not driving, it's easy. If you're driving, it's really distracted.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And if you use the knob, then you can just kind of scroll down. Of course, you still have the iDrive knob, and you can do that in most of the cars, but that iDrive knob is going away in some cars too. So it's gone in the X1, and what else? There was another one that it's gone. And 2 Series Active Tourer, and I'm hoping it's not going to be gone because the iDrive knob, it's really good, and the iDrive system overall, it's really good now. So hopefully that stays. But some of these things, they should not be really tinker with, honestly. And that's my only complaint about Vision Dee and what's coming, really.
The muscle memory, and I completely agree. There's certain things like core functionality, quick go to like hotkeys or shortcuts that really should not be digitized. It's
Yeah.
I understand. I understand. Like fast forward 20, 30 years from now, we all want to live in the sort of Star Trek, Star Wars universe where everything is a flat surface and it's a screen. But um, I don't know. I don't think we're ready for that. I think we've tried to do it in a lot of instances,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of backfired.
Yeah.
And you see some vehicles that are out in the market that have tried to go in that direction hard,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see like the following generation sort of like pull back and return some of those physical or analog controls back to the interior cockpit of the vehicle, and sort of giving the driver that physical kinetic connection.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Curious to see.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, I'm sure they're doing a lot of research. I have no doubt. I mean, they're doing a lot of research, and they're not just throwing darts and seeing what sticks, basically. But
Mm.
it'll be very interesting. Of course, we will take us some time to adjust. So we'll see. I mean, I'll see that concept car very soon, and I guess that will give us that will give me a better indication on what to expect in the future. And I can give you a better assessment. Probably at the Munich Auto Show in September, and this one we're going to see that concept car publicly, and then we can talk about that more. But yeah, that's Vision Dee. Just treat this one as a vision car. They're always showcasing some technology when it comes to the vision cars, and I guess the main focus on this one was really that head-up display, from what I understood. And of course, it shows this cool color changing thing. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
worth mentioning that.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, the headlights, the front end, the key grille is really just digital, and you can have expressions and do expressions, and you can adjust the keenness, the keenness, kind of shape in a way, and the lights and all of that. So that's quite cool, and I don't think that's too futuristic, because I feel like now being able to change colors on that's going to lead to some interesting projects, maybe one-off projects, or maybe small series cars where it will take advantage of being able to change the color on its own. And I can see the utility for that, and we've talked about that in certain articles. What's the utility of having a color changing car? And I guess one of them is really, if you go into a dealership and you want to see a car in a specific color, now you can actually just digitally
Mm-hmm.
change that color, and you can see it in real life, in real body shape or real dimensions, and you can actually see what it looks like versus seeing it on a tablet or augmented reality or everything else, VR and everything else. I think it's a better experience to introduce a car and show a car in different colors.
The cost to benefit ratio, though, right? For now, I think it makes sense to have it be present in these special scenarios, maybe like one-offs or very, very limited sort of creations for these specific scenarios, like at a dealership.
Sure.
But ideally, we have that as an end consumer thing that we could just have. But the cost, I think, right now is still too high to have it be mass produced.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool, though. Very, very cool idea.
Yeah.
Also, I'm wondering what
Definitely.
rules and regulations and policies as far as like
Yeah.
it's like, is this a blue car? Well, it
I
can
asked,
be a
yeah.
blue car. Well, registration says that it's just a question mark under like make, model, color, year. Color is just a
I
question.
asked that question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what
So
they say.
Stella Clark, she's the head of the project. Really cool engineer. She's awesome. And I asked that question. Of course, it's going to come down to regulation at some point, and what the future will look like, nobody knows. But there's some ways to make it legal. Like, for example, you could have the car a unique identifier, RFID kind of transmitter or something like that, or where it kind of transmits to the police car, hey, this is the original car. Basically, you're chasing, this car, it should be this color, but you're having this color. So something like that will talk to the police car, basically, on a voluntary basis, of course, and then that way it could be identified. But I mean, I'm sure they're thinking about that. I have no doubt that BMW is thinking, it's always thinking about regulations and how they can actually meet them. So no doubt we'll see something like that maybe in the future, like another concept or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what else? Oh yeah. So we spoke about mixed reality. Let me go back a little bit more.
Yeah.
I went to Portugal actually in November to the Web Summit, this huge tech conference, and BMW decided to invite me there to not only see that, and I mean, they were part of the whole web summit, but I wanted to see this mixed reality M2. It was a chance to drive the M2 once again. I had a chance to drive it last year as a prototype, but I had a chance to kind of drive it once again a little bit, to kind of drift and do some crazy stuff. But the cool part is, which I didn't realize before I actually went, they explained to me, but I was like, okay, maybe I don't really get it, but it sounds cool. The idea was really that I was in a physical M2 car prototype, 4-point harness and all of that, so you can be safe and everything else. An engineer being my co-pilot, so we can stop the car if needed. But essentially, I was wearing a high-end virtual reality headset. I believe it's 12,000 years or something like that. Extremely, business focused, business grade, and very high quality graphics. It talks to another device in the car that kind of tracks the motion of your head and the body and all of that, but also talks to the telematics on the car. It takes a lot of data points from the car, and basically because of that, when you're driving, you're not getting motion sickness or getting sick at all. Basically, you just feel like you're driving an actual car. So imagine this, having this huge VR headset on top of your head, and what you see out there, it's really a mixed reality. So basically, I can see my hands, I can see some of the controls on the car, the dashboard and everything else. But if you look on the side or in the front, it's basically all virtual reality. So what they did was they set up this virtual racetrack, essentially like in a game, and you're in a parking lot with a lot of space where you have room to kind of do these maneuvers, and you're kind of following the track, digitally displayed in front of you, and you can collect points if you're going through particular gates and getting different coins and all of that. So kind of like a fun game. But essentially, if you're looking from the outside, you feel like the guy just driving like a maniac, and they have no idea what the guy is doing, because he's like going and doing eights and turning and spinning and like what's going on. So from the outside, it looks quite weird, but the project is pretty cool because they didn't invest a lot of money. From what I heard, it was a kind of like a let's see what comes out of it. The feedback was pretty awesome. Of course, people think that it's silly, and in a way, maybe it's silly, because you want to drive the actual car on a racetrack. But they gave the example of, which is, actually Frank Vermeil, the BMW MCO, gave that example, which is, I think it's quite valid. If you're on Nordschleife, it's like a 20-kilometer kind of circuit, and then if you want to practice the same corner, you got to go around, right? So you got to go around and go around. It just takes time, right, to get to the same point. They're going to practice the same thing. Versus now, you can set up that particular corner or bank, and you're just practicing that over and over and over again, basically. And they give that example for certain tracks where if you want to practice getting the best time, that might be one way. Of course, it's also a cool way to experience different tracks around the world without actually being there. Naturally, it's not the same experience, not the same asphalt and everything else, but it's kind of cool because in a real world instead of a gaming world, and experiencing that. So very interesting. If you ever have a chance, or if they ever bring it to a consumer type show, maybe I encourage people to try it, because it's a lot cooler than it looks like in videos. It's hard to explain, especially while you're inside the car. You're fully immersed, and you just kind of imagine you're on a racetrack, really. So it doesn't feel any different,
except for maybe the physical G-forces, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, of course, you can't really. It's you're usually on a flat surface, right? So of course you're not going to be able to replicate completely that. But fun little project. I don't know if anything's going to come out of it as far as a future thing, but it kind of shows this mixed reality world, which is combination of physical things and the VR world that we keep talking about, the metaverse and everything else.
That just sounds like the most expensive, highest end, coolest home rig at home, right?
Yeah,
you put it on a dolly with like hydraulics to maybe simulate some motion as well. Yeah. But that's an interesting point of like being able to practice one specific corner over and over and over again. I mean, you're saving time, you're saving resources, tires, fuel, and all that jazz. Very interesting. Very interesting. Plus, you have like that tactile, again, physical experience of like being in the cockpit of the vehicle, but with all the benefits of mixed and AR and VR. Like that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we got time for two more topics. One again about the future, and then maybe one that's tangible and something that we can actually drive very, very soon. So let's start with that.
Let's do it.
All right. So let me start with another futuristic thing. I recently went to Brussels, or actually Antwerp, and the reason why I went there was actually to retest the BMW iX5 Hydrogen. Fun fact: last year I was actually the first person outside BMW to ever drive the BMW iX5 hydrogen. I was only told now, so I couldn't really brag about it last year, but I just found that I was the first person that actually drove the car outside of BMW engineers and ahead of other people too, actually, because there was a group of executives coming after me to test the car too. So I guess really I beat them to the punch, which was kind of cool to hear.
Horatio,
So
listen, everybody knows
right here.
Everybody
I
knows
know,
you're a big
bragging
deal.
moment right here.
You're a big deal, okay? Everybody knows.
No. I just honestly, I guess I got lucky this time. It was a very small group, so I made a cut. Let's just put it that way. Definitely made a cut. There were only a few journalists, and I was the first one to actually go there. And it was quite a journey because I went from Chicago to New York, then to Stockholm, then I landed in a small airport, and I took another tiny plane from there to Horatiu, and then actually before Horatiu, there's another city I can't really pronounce the name, and I took a ride from there, like an hour and a half drive in the middle of nowhere, really, by the Arctic Circle. So it was quite a unique experience.
Wow.
I mean, I filmed that last year, so there are a couple of videos out. If you Google BMW X5 Hydrogen, you will probably see the snowy footage, and I was basically at minus 40, minus 50 Celsius filmed. I was outside filming, it was freezing, and I filmed 2 days in a row. But nonetheless, this was the continuation of that story. Basically, that was a very early pre-production car. He had a lot of equipment inside. There was pre-production. He had a particular sequence to turn on and off the car, so it's all safe. So very, very different than one that I experience in Belgium right now. So in Belgium, they had a very refined project. Basically, it's the one that's going to go into a test fleet. There are some cars, they haven't said the full number, but I guess the US is going to get about 5 of them. They're going to be used, from what I know so far, as shuttle service type of cars, and maybe given to VIPs. They don't know exactly yet how the regulations will work here with that car. But essentially, it's a hydrogen car. And what I mean by hydrogen, it's actually an electric car. So let me give you a quick refresher on how that technology works, because first time that I went to Sweden last year, I was kind of confused a little bit too, but I've learned quite a bit since, even though I drove a similar one in France on their testing grounds there a few years back, similar thing. So essentially, you have 2 hydrogen tanks in the car. They produce energy which feeds into an electric motor placed at the back in this car, and essentially that's how the car drives. It's all electric. It's the same electric motor from the iX, so no difference there. And essentially, instead of using a battery pack to power that electric motor, you're using hydrogen to create the energy, and so on and so forth. We have a very comprehensive look at that on our YouTube channel, so make sure to check it out, because I talked to the head of the project, Jürgen Gullner, and he's been doing this for quite some time with BMW, and he explained in detail how that technology works. It's very interesting, very unique. But driving experience, I mean, it was the first time that I drove the car on public roads, because in Sweden it was really on frozen lakes, and it wasn't the same scenario. But essentially, I wanted to see what it feels like driving the car, and in many ways it felt uneventful in a good way, because I was just telling one of the engineers that was in the car with me that it just feels like a normal BMW electric SUV. Like, you don't think about, oh, is it an iX? Is it an X5? You just don't think about it. It just drives like a normal electric BMW SUV. It's a little bit underpowered compared to the iX, of course. And the technology's got a few benefits, and I'm going to focus on that first before I tell you the negatives. So the benefits are really the fact that you can refill quickly, 3 to 4 minutes. You can get to a range of 500 kilometers on the WLTP. It hasn't been ready for the EPA, so I'm not sure exactly what that will be. But essentially, you can refill quickly, and that's one of the benefits. Second benefit, I guess, what I see from my perspective, since I've been driving electric cars for quite some time, it's the benefit that I don't have to precondition the car in wintertime, and I don't lose that 30% of 30% of the range, because it's so cold outside, and I didn't precondition the car. So because of that, that's one of the advantages that I see in my case, that would work really well with a hydrogen powered car. There's some other ones, of course. Clearly, it's nice to produce electricity out of hydrogen and everything else. The end result, you can actually see it through the exhaust pipes, the fake ones. You can see the water kind of like dripping out, which is quite cool, actually.
That's pretty cool
to see that. Very, very cool. But there's some drawbacks. I guess the main one right now is the energy prices in Europe. They're quite high. I guess in Antwerp, they're extremely high right now. And the refueling station that I was at, It was about 18 euros per kilogram. The car has two tanks holding 6 kilograms. So simple math tells you that to go 500 kilometers, you have to pay about 180 euros. Very expensive, a lot more expensive than even probably a normal gasoline power car. Certainly more expensive than a BEV, fully electric car. So that's one of the drawbacks. The cons, they're telling me that the prices for the hydrogen might go down, so they're expecting it to be below $10. That's going to make it a little bit more affordable. But we have to see what happens with the energy crisis in Europe. And in the US, we don't have that problem, but we do have the issue that there are not enough refueling stations in the US. So that's another con, probably. There are only about 81 of them across the US, majority of them in California, clearly. So the infrastructure is not there yet. They're telling me that they can reuse the existing infrastructure to add hydrogen, so it makes it a little bit more compelling. They keep building, fast charging stations. But of course, a hydrogen station cost, it's in the millions of dollars. So we have to see how much, somebody or the government is willing to invest into this tech for the future. But BMW is excited about this one, mostly because it's not a technology that aims to take over the BEVs. I guess that's what people didn't really get the first time. Like, BMW is not trying to build this to overtake the battery powered vehicles. It's really a complement to that product. So somebody that's looking maybe for a car with more range, or maybe similar range but faster refueling times, and they live close to a hydrogen station, and this might be an option for them. Of course, the trucking industry and the the naval industry and all of that, they might be pushing this further in the future, where there will be more refueling stations along certain corridors, and then you can travel really longer distances without having to worry about the range, and simply just refilling the tank.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's kind of what they're thinking with this one. Very interesting tech. I'm sure it's gonna develop even more in the future, because this was built on the current generation cars Color architecture, but they have the dedicated Classic coming out. So they're going to probably be working on something for that as well, to show as a demo car, or show and tell car. But basically, we have to see what they do with that and how things are going to change. But very interesting tech. It's interesting that BMW and Toyota, they keep pursuing this, and we'll see what the future brings. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can really discard it fully. From a driving perspective, it's a normal electric car. You won't know the difference. It drives like a BMW. And that was the thing that I kind of focused on, because it really felt like an X5 electric, really. Nothing different.
That's sort of like, I guess, I won't say the highest praise, but I mean, if you can't tell the difference, then it's a win. It's fascinating,
Yeah.
though, that a lot of the work is sort of predicated and tied to, no pun intended, like economic temperatures, right? Like how things are panning out as far as like energy is concerned, but also how closely it's tied to logistics and infrastructure, and the desire or the um, willingness for governments to subsidize and sort of invest into this. It in part, it kind of decides whether this lives or sort of goes quietly into the night, sort of,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, the other maybe drawback or con that it's worth mentioning, that having a hydrogen car, it's not very efficient. So you're always going to get better efficiency overall in a car from a BEV product. So I guess it's in the 90s percentile, basically, when it comes to BEVs. And on this one, if you zoom out of the entire pipeline and everything else, the efficiency on a hydrogen car could be, as low as 60% or something like that. So of course, if you're close to a facility that produces hydrogen, right next to a windmill or something like that, then the efficiency, it's like a lot higher. But if you zoom out and you're looking at the entire pipeline, then it might not be very efficient, because you need to transport that, store it, and all of that. So it's not entirely green and very efficient. But
Very specific use case
yeah,
scenarios then, but like,
very
yeah.
specific use case scenario. Yeah. So I asked that question because I had to ask, I'm going to put them on the spot a little bit. But basically, it could be very efficient, and it could be highly inefficient, only depending on the use case, the facility location, how it's being produced, and so on and so forth. On the upside, of course, you're using less or almost non-rare materials, from what I understand. So you don't have to worry about cobalt and all of that, which is a big topic in today's development of electric cars. But that's another thing, that I mentioned in our review, and also on the website. There are quite a few articles on that, so definitely worth checking that out. And especially the video, it's very informative. I had a chance to talk to the engineers, and it's more of hearing them talking about the project, explaining a lot better than I could. So I encourage you to take a look at that for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was exciting. Yeah, so then jump from one to another. It's been so many things going on. I guess the next episode I will tell you, because I wanted to save the future episode on maybe an entire trip, because I had an amazing trip going to Amelia Island from Miami to Vero Beach and to Amelia Island, and I drove some exquisite BMW cars, new and classic ones. I published some videos already, but I have a lot more coming out, so I think we'll save that for next time. But we can also talk about my next trip in that episode, because it's still under the embargo, and it's probably going to expire until then. But basically, no secret, I'm gonna go drive the new M2 and XM. It's going to be an event in Phoenix. No track component, unfortunately, so only I'm going to be driving them on the road. I did have a chance to drive the M2 pre-production last year in Austria on Salzburg, so I had a chance to drive both manual and automatic on the track. So I have that experience. I was very fortunate to once again make the cut for that. It was tight, but I did make the cut for that one. And now I'm gonna be going on some public roads, basically, and seeing what the car can do. And I've been in the particular location and on those particular roads with the X5M and X6M, and I had a blast, because there's really some fun roads. Some of the portions or some of the sections of the road they're being closed off by the local police, so we can actually push the cars quite a bit. So it's going to be, if you see high speeds on those roads, those sections were closed off. It was all safe. There were no incoming cars, no anything like that. So it's been all done in a very safe manner. Of course, we're not going to go crazy, but that's the reason why you might see that speedometer a lot higher than you usually do,
because it's in a controlled environment. So
exactly. And it's another thing worth mentioning, because I keep getting yelled at, literally getting yelled at. Sometimes I publish photos, and especially on my own Instagram. I don't do it a lot on the BMW blog one, where I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, and clearly I'm in the US or Europe, so I'm not in the UK. And people don't understand that when you're going to an event like this, they work with the local enforcement, local police, and they close off portions of the road for a few minutes at a time. And then you can actually shoot photos there. So you have a lead car of professional BMW photographers. That's what they do for a living. Some of those guys I've known for a long time. I mean, honestly, they've been there a lot longer than I've been doing this. And that's what they do. They tell you to follow them. They tell you to move from one side to another, and they're going to shoot photos of you, videos, so on and so forth. And it's legal. It's legal in the way, because the cops are there. The roads are closed off. There is no danger whatsoever of any incoming car. So if you see me on the wrong side of the road, it was done on purpose. Really, I've been yelled at that I'm the typical BMW driver, and I'm bringing a bad reputation to the BMW driver,
community,
and community. I try to explain that that's the reason why we're doing that. And honestly, I could stay on just one side of the road, but sometimes the scenery is so good on the other side that they want me to move so I can get a perfect shot. And who am I to complain? So,
I mean, the blanket statement should just be: if you see that happening, understand that it's in a controlled environment. It is supervised by local law enforcement. The road is blocked off, dedicated for the shoot. Nobody's in danger. And the media and photography that's happening is done by professionals that have been doing it forever.
Yeah, and I'm at a point in life when I'm not there trying to get myself killed or damage a very expensive car by taking the perfect shot, to post it on social media. Not really. I mean, I'm trying to be as safe as possible. I'm probably driving slower than I ever was in the past. Trying to be smarter driver, not trying to prove anything and all of
You're
that.
trying not to be that G80 driver in the green one, right, on Instagram.
Exactly.
That's not who you are.
Yeah. Try not to. Yeah, but So M2 XM. So M2, I'll be driving over the 2 days. There'll be a lot of footage coming out. I promise you. You subscribe to the channels, all of them, because I will be pushing out a lot of content. Different colors for each car. There will be an M2 M Performance car, which I'm going to film, but I'm not going to drive. So you'll have a chance to see the M2 in different colors. The XM, it's got probably 6 or 7 colors there, which is quite cool. And I'm excited to see what the cars can do. I mean, I drove them already. I know they're capable. I don't expect them to have changed much because they were close to production, but nonetheless, it's still a lot of fun to drive these cars. I'm very fortunate to be doing this, and I think I'll have a lot of fun over 3 days in the beautiful Arizona and driving this car. So I would say stay tuned because I'll have a lot of thoughts on the cars. And if you know me by now, you know that I'm an M2 type of customer. I own a 1M, and I've always liked the smaller compact M cars more than anything else. They might be slower than the M3s and M4s or the M5s or M8s even, but they're just my style. So I can only imagine myself having a lot of fun with that. And of course, I will share you what it feels like to drive a manual versus an automatic on the M2. And then we're going to talk about the XM quite a bit also because it's a car that's quite controversial, I would say, and it confuses a lot of people what it stands for. But I can share you, my thoughts on what I think about the car and what it fits within the lineup. And of course, we can talk about the design on that car as well. So
it's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe.
yeah, a lot. I mean, I'm not going to tease everything else, but there are quite a few things that we'll be doing in the next few months between all of us, not just myself. And I think it's quite exciting because it's a really busy year for BMW. There is a 5 Series coming out. There is concept cars, a lot of stuff. And then the next year, it's a big year for M. You have the M5 sedan, the other one that they don't really talk about it yet, the M5 wagon, which it's likely gonna hit the road, soon in concept forms. I'm gonna in prototype forms. We're gonna see that. So there are quite a few things next year, but we're gonna focus on this year because there is a lot. Also, the Mini brand has a lot of things going on, so I can't wait actually. Because we do test drive Minis and Rolls Royces too. A lot of people might not know, but they might see the coverage and they wonder why they're part of the same BMW group, and we kind of have to. It's the same family. Some of the cars share components and traits and all of that and drivetrain. So it's definitely worth testing them out. And some customers or some BMW fans are Mini fans as well, so they own both products. So we'll be driving probably some Mini electric cars this year. So I'm quite excited about that because it's a new world for Mini, and personally, I can't wait to see what they've done with that. And then of course the holy grail, the Rolls-Royce Spectre. I've been talking to Rolls-Royce guys, and also with the chief designer Anders Warming recently, how much I'm actually waiting to drive the Spectre, uh, because I've been hearing about it. I've seen the car; it looks fantastic, but apparently the drive is just absolutely amazing.
Sublime.
Like apparently it's so quiet that if you thought that the previous Rolls Royces or like the Phantoms are quiet, then apparently this one is like you could hear like a pin drop. He was telling like literally you could do a test and hear a pin drop. That's how quiet and silent that car is. And I'm excited because I get excited about Rolls Royces quite a bit because not everybody gets to drive them, and
Yeah,
they're quite
not everybody
exclusive.
gets to drive
I
them.
mean, yeah, but honestly, that's what I was trying to get to that point where that I'm very careful when I drive a Rolls Royce. Sometimes the Rolls Royce PR guys ask me if I want to test drive one in Chicago, and I'm like, I'm afraid, like the potholes and parking the car in places, and then I don't have enough space in my garage. The car is too long, so then I have to park it in safe areas or safe warehouses. And I'm like, probably not. So I always pass on really amazing press cars for the Chicago area, and I save them for actual international drives or media drives and all of that because they kind of set up the entire thing for you. You don't have to worry about all these little details. But this one, the Spectre, I will drive it anywhere because honestly, I can't wait. I love the shape. I love everything about that car, and we'll also have a cool interview with the chief designer Anders Warming. He's a former BMW head of design, exterior head of design. So he's got a lot of thoughts about the car, and he's a really good guy to talk to and share some details on that. So that will be a cool thing happening also this year.
That sounds exciting. And listen, yeah, if you don't have the space at your place to park any Rolls Royce, just send them over to Seattle. I'll figure it out. Okay.
It honestly, even if you scrape a wheel, it's so expensive to repair, and of course they're not going to charge us. Mistakes can happen. You don't do it on purpose, but you still feel bad.
Of course.
You don't want to scrape a wheel or something, or somebody trying to steal maybe the spear of ecstasy, even though it's kind of hard to steal it today.
It's got a safety feature. It just pops down, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But so that's kind of the reason why I'm saying that I'm afraid to drive these cars. But I do enjoy a good Rolls-Royce drive in a nice setting, and especially if somebody drives you and you can fully experience what it means to be a Rolls-Royce owner, which I guess is something very, very unique from being a BMW owner, basically.
Well, I mean, you go from being the driver to being driven, right? And one can only assume that enrobed in the lap of luxury when you're in a Rolls-Royce. Whereas in the BMW, I mean, for me, it's like put on the helmet, gloves, race shoes. We're going to IKEA.
Nothing wrong with that. I do it a lot. Keep in mind that my daily driver, it's fairly boring. It's an i3 because I enjoy having a boring daily driver sometimes that I don't have to worry too much about, driving.
Yeah. But when you wanna let the hair fly, so to speak, you jump in your 1M, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not enough, but I should do a lot more this year. So yeah.
Once again, if you don't need it, send it over. Sure. Yeah, I'll give it a good home. I'll give it a good home. And
nobody drives that car. They just put it that way. Even myself.
Nobody drives the baby.
Nobody drives that car. On. Like nobody not drives the car. Nobody parks that car.
Well, I mean, I think again, and just to kind of touch back on what you said, like hurting a car, whether it's yours or not, if you're a true car person, hitting a pothole or hearing anything that's outside the norm, whether it's your car or not, it kind of hits you right in the soul. It hits you right in the heart. You're like, that one hurt. So it's no surprise that nobody valets like I do. Like I park my car, all the cars. It doesn't matter. Like it's and I'm cool about it. I'm not like, listen, no, but I'm just like, no, don't worry about it. I got this. Don't worry about it. Thank you.
So I'm gonna end with this anecdote. So I was just in the Mille Islands, and I'm gonna just tell you this: that I even told someone, they're all excited when they hear that I drive the 1M, and then right next to me, as I was talking about my 1M, there was a $2.5 million BMW 507 Roadster.
Oh, geez.
The Elvis Presley car, however you want to call it. And I was looking at the owner that just literally, he was there too. He left the car there. Anybody could touch it. It was open. You could actually stick your finger inside and play with the steering wheel. You could do anything. Nobody was there to really watch it or what you do. And I was like, wow, that's the difference between being extremely rich, and just being a normal guy that has a nice car. And you're like, oh no, do not touch my 1M, but and then you see the $2.5 million car right there. And then the rain came down and they hurried up to cover. I think they covered the X5M and X6Ms before they covered the 507. I swear to God,
God.
And it just, I mean, it's a car that's been meant to be shown to people and appreciate it. And I honestly have mad respect for that particular owner. I know him not personally, but I know his story and all of that. Huge respect for letting BMW, put a car there and not worrying about, having it all like sometimes you go to a car show and you have, guardrails like around the car and, closed off, you can't really get close to that. And this guy was just like living right there on the lawn, not caring. Honestly, amazing. Like honestly, huge props for somebody who does that.
Respect, absolutely.
Respect, unbelievable. So yeah, so what we like to complain about M3 CS and 1M.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like I would just be constantly there, just watching. But I guess that is the difference.
You're not that rich.
Not that rich.
You're not
yet.
Rich.
Not yet.
Not yet. If you get to that point to be like, yeah, it's just another assets that I have. I can always probably get something else.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, but the beauty of it, is that you make memories, and even if you could replace something 1-to-1, it's not the same exact thing, right? And if that's the type of person that you are that kind of invests, or ties memories or special events or whatever to physical objects, then you have a problem, right? It is really irreplaceable. And if you don't, I think you in a way, you sleep better at night.
For sure.
Let's have this problem in the future, shall we?
Exactly. Good problem to
have. Good problem to have.
Yeah, so that was today's episode, guys. If you're watching this, please leave us a comment on the YouTube channel. Let us know if you want us to talk about something in particular. There's so many topics in the BMW world. If you want to see something maybe unique from us, maybe cover newer cars, older cars, or any other topic that we can talk about, please let us know. We'll be happy to do so. There are probably so many things that we know that we don't realize that people are interested in. So let us know for sure. If you're listening, you can always send an email to, podcast@bmwblog.com with suggestions, feedback, and all of that. Today's episode was a little bit fast-paced. I talked quite fast today and a lot, but hopefully that kind of kills the dead spots within the video, so it doesn't feel as boring, if you're watching or listening. But next one, we'll catch up on that, and hopefully James has an update for us with his car by then.
Hopefully.
So we can talk more about that, and then we can tell you more about his next thing, where he's heading and what he's doing. So There'll be some cool stuff coming up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited. Can't wait.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. Always a pleasure.
Likewise.
Guys, we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, y'all.